Welcome to Chicago Drives Podcast, your go-to source for all things related to driving in Chicago. From navigating the city's busy streets to understanding the latest traffic laws. What are your questions? Our amazing guests are some of the best people in the business to answer and keep you ahead of the automotive curve. Am I ready to drive alone? What's that sound? Did I get ripped off? How do I protect this huge investment? We are here to help you become a safe and responsible driver on the road. So buckle up and join us in this journey through the ins and outs of driving in the Windy City. Welcome to Chicago Drives Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to Chicago Drive Podcast, a podcast where we're going to be taking care of you by teaching you how to become a safety and a responsible driver. Today, we're going to be talking about a very important topic here in this podcast. We're going to be talking about traffic stop guidelines, what we should do when we get stopped by a police officer, right? So for that, we're going to have our friend Frank right here. Hi, Frank. How are you?
Hello.
He's the quality control here at Nova Driving School. So we're going to be talking about all these things, all these steps that we're going to have to follow and do if we get stopped by a police officer. So how you doing, Frank?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
What is the first thing that you should do when you get stopped by a police officer?
Well, above all, stay calm. Pull over at your earliest convenience where you're not blocking any traffic, because if you pull over and you're blocking traffic, you can get hit by another car or the officer can get hit by another car.
Right.
So pull over when you are safe and not blocking. If you can pull over into a parking lot or a side street and not a major street, that's even better.
Is it okay if I want to park in a place where I feel safe, when there's a lot of lights and not on the dark?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's better to pull into a busy area because that way there's a lot of witnesses, just in case the police officer is not necessarily a good one.
Exactly.
You have a lot of good ones, but it's the very few that are not good that stand out.
Right.
And just to protect yourself, go to a very populated area and pull over there.
Nice. So
Yes.
after you've pulled over, what is the next step?
Then you turn the car off and wait for the police officer to come, roll down your window, and wait for the instructions from the police officer.
Okay.
You need to follow whatever directions the police officer says. Be polite to the police officer. Provide the information that they are seeking, such as your license and registration. You should always have your registration in your glove box, so that when the police officer asks for it, you know exactly where it's at. Have your insurance card ready, just in case they ask you for your insurance card.
Where are your hands supposed to be so the police officers don't have any thoughts that you're trying to get something? Where is your hand supposed to be
Always
located?
keep your hands on the wheel until the officer asks you for any specific item. And also let the police officer know that you are going to retrieve whatever he's asking for and where you're going to retrieve it for him. For example, if you're going to go into your glove box, you tell him, I'm going to go into my glove box to get the registration or the insurance card.
Right.
I'm going to go into my back pocket so that I can get my license for you.
Right.
Yes, just inform them in advance so they don't think that you're going to get a weapon of some sort.
Exactly. Or throwing something not legal.
Or getting rid of something that,
Yes.
you don't want to give them the wrong impression. Exactly.
Right. So most of all, follow instructions, respectful, be polite.
Don't be combative, yes.
Yes. And also provide information if the police officer is asking you, right? So what questions can they ask besides license and registration, please? What can they say?
There's certain things that you don't have to divulge, but there's nothing wrong with saying your name, for example. Some people say, oh, don't give your name. And what's wrong with giving your name? You give your name all the time to people that don't matter.
Right.
Why not give them the name? When you don't give them your name, you're making it worse for yourself, because now the police officer thinks that you're hiding something.
Right.
So keep in mind that you don't want to, just because you know all your rights, you don't want to stick perfectly to the rights that you have and say, I don't have to give you that information, because now you're being combative.
Right.
And now the police officer is going to take a totally different attitude against you. not with you.
Exactly. And also when they asking for questions, like, so, because you can get stopped for any little reason, right?
Absolutely.
Not necessarily because you did something wrong, but it could be maybe the vehicle looks familiar from a stolen car.
Exactly.
Right?
So they have to investigate.
Right.
And think about it. If it's your car that got stolen, you would want that police officer to search and find your car.
Exactly.
So don't just be combative thinking, well, I didn't do anything wrong, because they might just be checking to see if you are the owner of that vehicle and it's not stolen.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yep. So another thing that I heard, and maybe you can clarify this, is it okay if you, let's say the police officer say, okay, can you open your trunk? I want to see what's going on. Is it okay to?
You don't have to open the trunk. They need a search warrant for that.
Okay.
And to enter your car, they need a search warrant, but they can have you come out of the car. Now, if they have probable cause to search your car, let's say you were smoking and you tossed something out the car, they don't know if it's a cigarette or something else.
Right.
Now they have probable cause to check inside your car.
Right.
Yeah, they won't need a search warrant for that.
Okay. And there's another thing. Do not admit any type of guilt if you don't feel guilty about it.
Definitely do not admit any guilt. Even if you feel you may slightly be guilty of something, don't admit to it. Let the lawyers and the judges determine who is guilty or not.
Yes, there's also something called your Miranda right.
Yes,
right?
You have the right to remain silent.
Exactly. So when
they have to read them to you if they're going to arrest you.
When will they arrest you? Like if you did something wrong, if you were fighting with a police officer, if you have a lethal weapon on you or whatever, that's when they will arrest you.
Yes, they're not going to arrest you for running a red light. They're not going to arrest you for causing an infraction that causes a ticket. That they cannot arrest you for.
So one of the important things for us then is to know your rights. I mean, you got to know your rights, but that doesn't mean you got to show them that you know the rights.
Exactly. When you try to show them off, you're going to make it worse for yourself. And it's not that the officer may have a chip on their shoulder, is that you are already trying to show off that, hey, look, I know my rights and I know more than you, and that's not going to work in your benefit.
Exactly.
Yes, you should know your rights. Yes, you should stick to your rights, but within reason. I mean, if you really don't have any reason to show off what you know, then why even bother?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And just keep the interaction very minimum too. You know?
Yes.
If they ask you something, answer. Don't go more beyond than that, right?
Absolutely.
Make it simple.
Short
maybe.
and sweet.
Right. Exactly. So let's say, like, because at the beginning of the podcast, you mentioned about we have good police officers. Sometimes we might have not so good.
We have more good police officers than we have bad, but it's always the bad ones that make it look bad for all police officers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in case there's that 1% of police officers that are not too good, what can you do?
Well, sometimes you have a police officer that is in fact good, but he's playing the bad role, because you always have, when police officers pull you over, sometimes they determine, okay, you're going to be the good cop, I'm going to be the bad cop, just to try to get information from the person that they pulled over, just to make sure that they're okay and telling the truth.
Right.
So this cop may not necessarily be a bad cop, but he's sounding like he's a bad cop because he's playing a role at that moment. So it's a fine line where they have to tread so that they can get information from you, but also keep in mind that even if a cop is appearing to be a bad cop, you have to keep cool.
Yeah.
Because you can aggravate the situation. If the cop is already testy and you give him the same attitude that he's giving you, it escalates the problem.
It's being unprofessional too. Because, you're professional.
But also the police officer may be a little unprofessional, but that doesn't mean that two wrongs make a right.
Exactly.
So you always have to keep your cool even if they're not. Also, remember that they have a camera. They have a chest camera, and they're constantly recording, and that can be reviewed later to determine whether they were in fact bad, or you just interpret it as them being bad.
Can I report a police officer?
You can always report a police officer. Take a look at their badge and name.
Okay.
You don't even have to ask them because they wear it.
Right.
So you don't. When you ask them for their badge number and their name, you're indirectly telling them, okay, I'm going to report you. So now they're going to have a different attitude. So just look at their badge, memorize the number, memorize the name that they have on their uniform without having to ask them.
Okay.
And then if they didn't comport themselves the way you thought that they should, then report them. And then whoever you report to, they will determine whether it's worthy of continuing to investigate, or maybe this person is just being a little sensitive.
True. So after all of this had happened, they gave you your ticket, your ticket of the citation, whatever the citation, the red light, or whatever traffic circumstances happened. So you have your ticket, you signed it, and then you're off your way. Is that how it works, or do you?
Generally, a lot of times a police officer will just give you a warning and a break.
If it's the first time,
even if it's not the first time, it all depends on your behavior and on the police officer. Some police officers, they just want to know what happened.
Right.
If you did something that was a bit illegal, but then you explain to the police officer, hey, the officer, the car in front of me slammed on his brakes and I got scared, so I changed lanes real quick. That's why I didn't signal, for example. And then if you give a police officer the correct excuse as to not signaling to change lanes, or whatever the case may be, more often than not, they'll just let you go with a warning. Oh, okay, well, that makes sense. Just be careful. Don't drive too close to the car in front of you, so you don't have to slam on your brakes, or you don't have to move over suddenly. And they'll give you a little sermon and maybe let you go. In the event that they do give you a ticket, you either choose to thank the officer. You don't have to thank the officer, because who wants to thank an officer for getting a ticket?
We're being polite,
but I'm not saying not
right?
to. I'm saying it's a good thing to say. Be apologetic. Say, okay, I'll take care of this. And do take care of. Follow the instructions that are in the ticket. If he put that you have to go to court, then appear at court. If you don't appear at court, you're automatically guilty, and you're going to get the ticket. And then that could generate an arrest warrant.
Oh, wow.
For missing court.
For missing court.
If they have you go to court, that means you have to go to court. If you want to plead guilty, you can plead guilty through the ticket and pay the fine. And it goes on your record. If you don't want it to go on your record, you go to court and you plead your case with the judge, and then the judge can make the determination if it goes on your record or not. And a lot of times, if it's your first offense and you have a clean record, the judge may just say, okay, you got probation for the next 3 months, dismissed, and that means that for the next 3 months you have to be clear of tickets.
Right.
If you're clear of tickets within those 3 months, doesn't even go on your record.
Oh, nice. Because everything that will go to your record if you don't, keep it in a sharp, good condition, right? If you want to say it, right?
Yeah.
Very good, Frank. Thank you so much. So what would you recommend to the audience that is listening to us, keeping yourself away from these type of situations?
Well, first, know the rules of the road. A lot of people don't know the rules of the road, and I'll give you an example. Most people know that they're allowed to make a right turn on red. But the majority of the people that turn on red think that because you're allowed to turn on red, that you don't have to stop. Oh, I can turn on red, so now I don't have to. No, you still do have to stop.
Exactly.
Make sure that the coast is clear and then go through. And by stop, I mean a complete stop, not slow down. When you have a camera, a red light camera, and there's a sign that says no turn on red, well, then you cannot turn on red. But sometimes you have a red light camera and there's no sign, which means you're able to turn on red. But if you don't stop completely, you're going to get a ticket in the mail. And then you're going to be wondering, why did I get a ticket in the mail when I'm allowed to turn? Because you didn't stop. You have to stop first. And so if you know the rules of the road, then you won't get those types of tickets.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mr. Frank Valencia. Thank you to all the audio podcasters that are listening and looking into this Chicago Drives podcast. Thank you. Today we had our traffic stop guidelines. I hope you really enjoyed all this information, and please keep in touch with us. Go to Nova Driving and YouTube channels and in all our social medias there where you can find all the information and all the requirements of everything of the services that we have also provide here at Nova Chicago. I was Naya. Thank you so much. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you once again for having me.
See you next